Right, we are moving on to 40k lore. How orcs ruined Abaddon's war. The worst Black Crusade. It's funny how orcs and Tyranids can ruin chaos. But just like fantasy, it'll all blow up.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. 3 centuries have passed since the end of the 10th Black Crusade. The Imperium, battered by millennia of external threats and internal strife, still clings to its territories. The golden years of the Great Crusade are long forgotten. Few now remain who even remember those hallowed days. Where once the Imperium was a bastion of hope for mankind, it is now a rotten carcass. Too large and bloated to collapse, the Emperor's realm slowly fades away. World after world, soul after lost soul, mankind inevitably crawls towards extinction. And in the dark void of the Eye of Terror, something stirs again. It was in the year 301 M39 that the shadows stirred once more, and the galaxy would again know fear. Welcome to our latest video on the wars of Abaddon the Despoiler, in which we will cover the 11th and perhaps most chaotic of his Black Crusades. In the endless conflicts of the far future, sacrifices must be made. Every day, the species of the Milky Way galaxy numbered their losses in the millions. Yet the machine of war never rested. Tanks and warships were rebuilt.
Oh, and I want to make this clear. Games Workshop, bring back the Emperor. Let him come back. Stop making up excuses and stop dragging it out. Bring him back. Bring him back already as his all-powerful self and let him cook.
Populations were replenished. Planets were recaptured. In spite of all this,
and stop writing him into dumb walls that make no sense for his character.
One unrecoverable resource remained out of reach of all: time. Not even the Emperor of Mankind could gain back a single precious wasted second once it had slipped from his fingers. And now he sat rotting on the Golden Throne, waiting for someone or something to finally seal his fate. Time would make corpses out of all. While the Emperor brooded, somewhere beyond the veil of the Eye of Terror, Abaddon sat in his eternal advantage. The traitor legions were notoriously short on everything, from guns to war engines to precious gene seed. Moreover, the impossibility of the Sea of Souls made for poor...
Well, the problem is gene seeds for chaos-infected Marines and Space Marines were so volatile that the Marines don't last very long. They fall apart.
Logistics. The heretics waged war with antiquated weaponry and sailed across the stars on warships that hadn't been refitted for generations. They reaved and scavenged with pathetic desperation, hoping to lay hands on anything that might allow them to continue their long war for one more day. Yet the one thing the traitors had more than anyone else in the galaxy was time. Safely hidden within the folds of the Eye, Abaddon was out of reach and out of sight. He could lay his plans with impunity and wait, as centuries of real time passed in the blink of an eye within the warp. Abaddon, ever patient, had spent 3 such centuries brooding and scheming. He had gathered new allies and forged new pacts in his endless war against the Corpse Emperor. His pact with Perturabo had predictably broken down. Once his conditions had been met, the irascible Lord of Iron had cut all ties with the Warmaster. This was probably for the best, as the fallen Primarch would have been the greatest challenger Abaddon had ever faced if it had come to it. 300 years after the 10th Black Crusade, the Despoiler's eye turned once more to the hated Imperium. With it came the grinding machinery of war, the clamour of Chaos champions eager for blood, and demonic hordes eager to be unleashed. For the followers of the Dark Gods, it was time to rise once more. For the Imperium, it was the first whispers of a new nightmare. Gathering his warships, Abaddon set out once again. The hated planet of Cadia, however, was still in his way. No matter what the Warmaster had thrown at the planet, its mighty casters had remained unbroken. Abaddon's last 3 Black Crusades had shown him the value of bypassing the Fortress world altogether and striking at the less defended rear of Imperial space. And so the Despoiler resorted to obfuscation and confusion once again. Unfortunately for the Warmaster, his usual tricks would not work this time. The Imperium had gotten wise to his tactics and taken countermeasures to ensure their front line remained impassable. To make matters worse, Abaddon had lost access to the mind-shackled cogitators Perturabo had used during the 10th Black Crusade. Without their guidance, he had no means of safely bypassing Cadia. All of this may explain the War Master's next questionable decision. Imperial scholars still debate over Abaddon's state of mind in the moments leading to the 11th Black Crusade. On one hand, Ezekiel had proven his military prowess again and again. On the other hand, his strategic decision-making during these events was certainly less than stellar. But
you gotta admit, in the Warhammer 40k universe, when it comes to the amount of stupid things that some of these guys do, when you consider that the majority of them are smarter than every other human, it's weird. It's almost like Games Workshop just says, let's write this stupid thing in the stupid way to make it seem even stupider.
But as noted by one of the greatest heroes humanity had ever known, it was never wise to underestimate the enemy, particularly a 10,000-year-old madman who'd been marinating himself in the raw stuff of chaos for most of that time. Regardless of what went through Abaddon's mind, the War Master ultimately decided to once again trust in sorcery. Ezekiel set his psyches to summon and bind a greater demon of Tzeentch, the god of change. Shackling the enslaved creature to his ship, the despoiler meant to use its infinite knowledge to guide him through the Sea of Souls. Needless to say, this plan was worse than reckless. Trusting the will of Tzeentch was a fool's errand to begin with. Trusting an enslaved pet of the ficklest and most unknowable of the Chaos Gods was nothing less than insane. Still, Abaddon had secured Tzeentch's graces during the 8th Black Crusade. Perhaps he thought this was enough to see him through this ordeal. If so, he would be greatly disappointed. The gods of chaos are nothing if not fickle, and Tzeentch was the most treacherous of them all. The demon of change that Abaddon bound to his warship was no passive tool. It was a caged tempest, a creature of impossible intellect, malice, and madness. Its mind danced through the kaleidoscope of the Immaterium, warping reality with
Is it that double-headed bird?
each passing moment. For a time, the despoiler believed he held the beast in check, forcing it to guide his fleet through the writhing tides of the warp. But such arrogance would not go unpunished. The demon's prison was elaborate.
Gotta admit, that demon looks a lot like the one that they threw a ship at.
Labyrinth of wards and runes, crafted by the most gifted sorcerers of the Black Legion. Yet nothing can truly silence a creature born from chaos. The demon spoke in a cacophony of truths and lies, riddles and promises. Its words coiled like serpents in the minds of the navigators it was supposed to guide, a constant gnawing pressure that eroded their will. As the fleet plunged deeper into the roiling madness of the warp, the demon's task grew harder. The Immaterium was a churning ocean of soul storms and psychic riptides, a sea of screaming, hateful spirits. Forced to navigate this chaos for Abaddon's vast fleet, the demon's mind strained and twisted. Even its vast intellect frayed under the impossible burden. What began as a low, whispering murmur
Sounds like they need a navigator.
soon swelled to a chorus of madness. The demon's mind fragmented under the weight of countless realities pressing against it. Its laughter became a scream, its prophecies shattered into a storm of contradictions. The sorcerers chanted louder, redoubling their efforts to maintain control. Yet even as they wove spells of binding, the demon's fury built, a pressure that could not be contained. Some among the sorcerers clutched at their heads, blood pouring from their eyes and ears, their thoughts invaded by the demon's madness. Many fell, their minds shattering like glass. Others turned upon each other, howling accusations of treachery, clawing and stabbing in panic. With a scream that echoed through the warp, the demon finally broke. Its intellect shattered like a mirror. Yet though broken, it was not free. Bound by Abaddon's sorcery, its fractured essence assaulted the minds of the ship's navigators. Unmoored from any rational course, the demon's madness spilled into the warp and engulfed Abaddon's warships. Reality fractured as the fleet was scattered across the galaxy. Some ships were hurled light years away, emerging in the darkness of the void, their hulls scorched by psychic power. Others appeared at the very edge of the Eye of Terror, their crews babbling in tongues, their minds seared by visions of impossible futures. A few vanished entirely, never to be seen again, their fates a mystery. And some poor vessels were cast into the depths of the Immaterium, where their hulls twisted and melted, and their crews were torn apart by the gibbering horrors of the warp. Abaddon's fleet, once a disciplined hammer of war, was torn asunder into a scattered flotilla. The despoiler's grand
such is the
strategy
fate
lay in
of
ruins,
chaos.
his carefully laid plans
And
scattered
everybody else, because
alongside
everyone's a
his
bad
forces.
guy in this universe.
This was by far the most catastrophic opening to any of his Black Crusades. The Imperials had not even fired a shot, and already the Black Legion found itself in dire straits. But Abaddon himself, seething from the wreckage of his damaged flagship, refused to admit failure. Where there was a will, there was a way, and the despoiler would find an opportunity to turn this disaster to his advantage. Ezekiel's flagship was flung from the warp, along with a few of his vessels. After a moment of utter confusion, the War Master managed to regain control of the situation. Status reports and auger scans confirmed their plight. Only a handful of Black Legion void crafts had remained together. To make matters worse, they were light years away from any target worth pursuing. Ship technicians and warp seers confirmed their location. Abaddon had chanced upon the world of Reloria in the system of the same name. Reloria was an unremarkable cardinal world, whose primary bastion against the encroaching darkness was its faith. Their response time, however, was admirable.
The faith? Yeah, that just empowers chaos.
The Ecclesiarchy's Frateris militia mustered in their thousands, clad in ragged robes and wielding weapons marked with holy sigils. Though they were a far cry from the disciplined troops of the Astra Militarum, these fanatics would fight to the last. The preachers' voices rang out over the world, causing the faithful to stand against the heretics, their fanaticism a bulwark against the darkness. Some were mere thralls or factory workers pressed into service with little more than prayer and determination. But faith in the grim darkness of the far future was a weapon all its own. Ezekiel was determined to make the most out of the situation. Meager though it were, Reloria would still yield some spoils to console the Black Legion. The attack was launched immediately. The battle for Reloria became a savage, grinding slaughter. In the cathedrals where once rang solemn hymns
Well, Space Marines are really more powerful.
of faith, bolter fire echoed from broken stained glass. The Black Legion advanced in a relentless tide, their terminators crushing the faithful beneath iron-shod boots. Yet the defenders did not falter. Armed with relics and any manner of weaponry they could lay their hands on, the priests led their flock in suicidal charges, the scent of burning promethium mingling with the stench of scorched flesh. The steps of the planet's many basilicas became charnel houses, their marble stairs slick with blood. Meanwhile, across the outer worlds of the sector, the tragedy of the Snakebones was unfolding. As one of the only loyalist Space Marine chapters in this section of Imperial space, they had mobilized as chapter strength to deal with Abaddon's unexpected arrival. They had taken it upon themselves to fight those elements of the Death Guard that had accompanied the War Master. Unfortunately for the brave defenders of humanity, the loyalist Astartes were exposed to the Destroyer Plague, a virulent blight that corrupted even their sacred gene seed. Rot spread through their ranks like wildfire.
And Abaddon needs Gene Seed, but he corrupts it. Boy, that doesn't work out well for him in the things he needs.
Much to Nurgle's delight. Warriors, once clad in pristine armor, were now reduced to
So that's the Chaos God Abaddon works for, is Nurgle.
floated, decaying husks. Catharis, their chapter master, watched in despair as his brothers became living corpses. Not even their transhuman bodies could withstand the agony brought upon by this warpish disease. In sickening emulation of Mortarian's own fall so many years ago, Catharis begged the Plague Father to spare his brothers. In that moment of darkness and weakness, Nurgle answered. Desperation became devotion, and the Snakebones fell to chaos, renaming themselves the Plague Bones. The once noble and pious chapter was forever reduced to a repulsive mockery of its former self. But just as the Black Legion seemed poised to crush all resistance, a new horror descended. Abaddon's shipmasters voxed frantic warnings to their battle brothers down on terra firma. The astropathic choir and void stations of Reloria likewise warned their leadership. From the endless void of space, a vast armada emerged, bearing the emblems of Gork and Mork. The greenskins of warlord Murgor Undred.
How do orcs figure out how to build things when the best that they can speak is in gibberish? Very weird.
Descended without any semblance of order or discipline. Such was the way of the mighty orc. Their unexpected arrival upon Reloria was like a grox in a glass shop. Rocks plummeted from orbit, crashing into the blasted plains around the battlefields. From each smoking crater rose a tide of green-skinned barbarians, their bellows drowning out even the thunder of war. Gargants, towering war machines of twisted iron and scavenged scrap, lumbered across the landscape, their weapons vomiting fire and death. The orcs smashed into the Black Legion with all the subtlety of an avalanche. The followers of the Dark Gods had fought with cold contempt and disgust, the followers of the God Emperor with righteous zeal and self-sacrifice. The orcs, however, fought for the simple fun of it. In the midst of this spontaneous three-pronged war,
Literally just what they do.
Mercy asked or given,
Eat,
they
sleep,
were truly
crap,
in their element.
and reproduce.
Greenskins clambered over the twisted ruins, hacking at
Not that they
traitor marines
reproduce,
with
they're created
crude
from some
axes
weird fungi.
and roaring for more victims.
At least in
The
this
Black
universe.
Legion's warriors met them with bolter and chainblade, but for every orc they slew, 10 more took their place. The air was thick with the screams of the dying, the bellowed war cries of the orcs, and the chilling hymns of the ecclesiarchy's preachers, still crying out for divine intervention even as they burned. Abaddon's plans seemed in ruins. His fleet was scattered, his sorcerers broken, and his forces were now caught between the zealous fanatics of the ecclesiarchy and the endless green tide of the orcs. Yet, where most saw only chaos, Abaddon saw opportunity. He ordered his chaos sorcerers, who still retained their sanity, to capture as many orc psykers as they could. Unlike most other sentient races, the orcs' crude mastery of the warp was instinctual. Their unique psychic bond, known as the power of the Wa, was a force truly unlike any other. Though blunt and inelegant, no one in the galaxy could doubt its effectiveness. Abaddon had fought the orcs countless times before. Most in the galaxy saw them as mindless, barely sentient brutes, but Abaddon knew better. If given enough time and numbers, the Greenskins had a terrifying potential, thanks to their psychic connection. Ezekiel had seen it all 10,000 years before, at Ulanor. There, Horus Lupercal had slaughtered the Great Beast, one of the greatest war bosses the galaxy had ever seen. His orc horde had presented the greatest threat the Imperium had ever seen. Sophisticated and technologically advanced, these orcs had attained feats of engineering and warp mastery that would make the other races of the Milky Way galaxy green with envy. If Abaddon could tap into the secrets of the greenskin psychos, he might be able to use the power of the Wa to his advantage. Even as the Black Legion fought for their lives, Abaddon's forces dragged shrieking weird boys back to his ships.
Freaking
There,
weird
the dark
boys.
rituals began. The orc psychers were bound in iron chains, etched with the same runes that had bound the demon. Whatever passed for the green-skinned souls were exposed to the raw tides of the Immaterium. Neverborn howled and raged, clawing at the orc captives, their energies melding with the Xenos in a fusion of raw power and primal fury. Abaddon's twisted experimentations gave rise to grotesque horrors, orc-demon hybrids, hulking abominations of muscle, claw, and warp energy. These monsters rampaged across the battlefields of Reloria, heedless of friend or foe, tearing through Imperial defenders, heretics, and orcs alike. As Reloria burned and the Imperium's defenders lay shattered, Abaddon withdrew. His fleets clawed their way back to the Eye of Terror, carrying with them
He tried to
hundreds
take
of
some
captured
form.
weird boys and the dark knowledge of their power. Behind him, Reloria was left to the orcs, its sacred temples reduced to smoking ruins, its peoples scattered and broken. The 11th Black Crusade had utterly failed in its immediate goals, making it by far the least successful of Abaddon's incursions. At the very least, the War Master could console himself with the fact that his abhorrent experiments had somewhat weakened the veil between real space and the warp. As for his newfound weapon, Abaddon never again employed such orc-demon hybrids. Imperial scholars and sinologists remain puzzled as to why, given its effectiveness. The simplest explanation, however, seems to be the most likely. Unsurprisingly, the power of the Wa seems to have proven simply too volatile to tame. Compared to its savage potential, even shackling a demon of the god of change to travel
Is it like
war
wild magic?
is still a more reliable option.
Fireball drops
After
on
all,
you.
it is well known within the savants and leaders of this savage species that compared to any of the wonders and horrors of the 41st millennium, the orcs is the best. More videos on the Warhammer 40k universe are on the web. Moreover,
Necrons.
we're planning to cover the battles of many other fantasy, sci-fi, and space opera universes, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.
All right, I'm gonna have to cut the stream a little bit short today. I am very tired. It looks like I need to take a nap. I'm gonna take that nap. All right, see you guys next time.
Hey there everyone, if you enjoy this content, like and subscribe and comment down below. Thanks again.